All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Oh, thank you, everyone. Sorry for the wait. I was waiting for the hair and makeup people, and then I realized I don't have any hair and makeup people, and that's all.
What?
I know. Well, that was my old life on television. Now I just, I sit there in front of the mirror and I lament the way I look now. So it's a kind of a different program, really. But I'm so happy that I'm joined by my colleagues. You know, I always say it's all about your colleagues. Don't you?
Who is having that conversation?
You're right. I never say it, but it is still nice to have Albert here.
Albert, thank you.
And Kim here.
Kim, how are you?
And Kim has been dutifully working to put this show together and give it a coherence alongside Albert. And I think we have a really terrific program for you that will touch on a lot of the things that ail America at the moment. We'll get into the Epstein thing heavily because of the political ramifications. And let me tell you, I have a forecast of sorts on what will happen with the Epstein probe and the Epstein conversation and the way it's eroded a lot of the Trump base and how he'll try to seize this moment in a special way. So I'm going to get into that forecast a bit. We'll also talk to David Katz, the former federal prosecutor, now defense attorney in Southern California. He will give us the latest. We have some high-profile SCOTUS decisions that he'll get to, and I'll also ask him to comment on the nomination and confirmation process of Beauvais, the lawyer that was the personal attorney of Donald Trump. He's a Trump loyalist, and he may put the L in loyalist. And what happened at his confirmation hearing is something that you need to hear, and we'll give you a little something from Sheldon Whitehouse, who is, as you know, a very high-profile member of the Senate Judiciary Committee and involved in that confirmation process, who speaks to why Democrats walked out of the Beauvais confirmation. I also have any manner of other stories that at the moment affect America: immigration, lawsuits related to immigration, lawsuits related to the way that immigration ICE agents have pursued arrests in any number of cities, including Los Angeles and Camarillo. And there's a lawsuit going on right now about Alligator Alcatraz, you know, that place down at concentration camp in Florida. So we'll get to all of that. So promise to get to it all. First into the super sticker game is Wes Theory.
Whoa, Wes.
Yeah, thank you. Big shout out to you, Wes. You are an OG. Really appreciate your support. Kian, is it Kiana, you think? I love this name. It's almost Hawaiian, isn't it? Kiana K, or what would you call that?
Yeah, Kiana K.
Kiana K saw Mark last night on an episode of Nip Tuck. It was the Mark Thompson voice I recognized. Wow, that's very impressive.
Do you know who I am?
That's really
kind of a big deal.
I did the Nip Tuck. I forgot it was on Nip Tuck. That's right. Albert, do you think I was going for a nip or a tuck? You have two choices. Three, you also have the choice of neither nip nor tuck.
That was that show on FX before, right, Kit?
That's right. It was a hot show for a while. I ran for like 5 seasons, I think. Neither is the answer. I was there, I think, as a neither a nipper or a tucker. But it's nice that Kiana found my distinguished work, some of my best work on Nip Tuck. Speaking of nipping and tucking, we will get into White House statements around the Epstein controversy. You saw that Cuomo is now going to run as an independent in New York. Isn't that what he's saying? I was looking at...
Yeah, he is not letting the fact that he did not win the Democratic primary stop him. And instead...
Yeah.
Didn't vote for me? Well, guess what? I'll run as a third party then. Fine.
I do hug
and kiss
Yes.
people casually.
Right, and when you're hugging and kissing, maybe he'll run on the hug and kiss casually platform.
Who did that?
You do
Remember
need to.
Lieberman did that. Senator Lieberman, didn't he do that too?
Oh, is that right? I didn't remember
Yeah,
that.
no.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
But he did
well,
this.
it's all the rage.
He did a launch video for his, I'm going to run as an
Oh,
independent.
here he is. Wow.
I
Here's his
do
launch
hug
video.
and kiss
No, go ahead.
And I
people
just
casually.
before we play it, I just want to note that he had posted this campaign video, and his rival Mamdani posted a link to donate money to his campaign in the response. Okay, Mamdani's response to this video got 95,000 likes. Cuomo's original video, 2,900. So that's a big difference.
Yeah, this is a guy who's clinging to the dream. Should we watch maybe?
I'm Andrew Cuomo. And unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know that the Democratic primary did not go the way I had hoped. To the 440,000 New Yorkers who voted for me, a sincere thank you. Thank you for believing in me, in my agenda, and in my experience. And I am truly sorry that I let you down. But as my grandfather used to say, when you get knocked down, learn the lesson and pick yourself back up and get in the game. And that is what I'm going to do. The fight to save our city isn't over. Only 13% of New Yorkers voted in the June primary. The general election is in November, and I am in it to win it. My opponent,
I love
Mr.
that, in it to
Mamdani,
win it.
offers slick slogans, but no real solutions. We need a city with lower rent, safer streets, where buying your first home is once again possible, where childcare won't bankrupt you. That's the New York City we know. That's the one that is still possible.
Well, that's actually not the city that you know. That's the city you'd like to have. And those aren't solutions you're suggesting. Those are just that's a list of problems. But anyway, good luck.
I do hug and kiss people casually.
Yeah, okay. So
how are you going to make New York City, the most expensive housing market in the United States, affordable for first-time home buyers and families? Are you kidding?
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I would say just about this New York race, and I want to move on, it's interesting that Cuomo just will not let go of it.
Mm-hmm.
I do think, and we've talked about it before, I think it's instructive from the standpoint of politics generally in America, local and national, that somebody like Mamdani can punch through, because he's punching through with real world solutions. I mean, they're real ideas that you can consider them radical. But as we were discussing here, I think with David Katz, a complete freeze on rents. Now, I'm not saying it's a good idea, bad idea, but it's really not that radical an idea, because you're talking about the same areas that already have rent control. And there's a 3% increase on rent. So you're going from 3% to 0%. That's not a radical change. But anyway, the idea of a freeze on rents and then free public transportation, you make the MTA free. Those are ideas that make New York more affordable. What you see, at least in that spot that Cuomo is doing, is you just see a list of, these things that ail New York City, and that's just not going to get the job done. I mean, witness the kind of anemic performance that he had. So, and the reason that it's instructive, Mamdani, just to put a clean finish on it, is real ideas, they do punch through. Trump is a fake populist, right? He suggested all of these things that he was going to do for his people. He won a national election that way twice. Now, a lot of what he does is he calls out the opposition with bald-faced lies about the opposition. He calls out the opposition in angry tones, name-calling. That sort of rhetoric usually doesn't carry the day, but he does it in a way that suggests, when you add the con to it, which is, I'm going to, cure your ills on day one. Take this magic Trump pill, and there'll be no more inflation, no more wars. You'll live in a big mansion like mine. Oh my God, we're winning, winning, winning. And enough people swallow that crap, or they're frustrated with their own situation and the current leadership, that they vote for that crap, and he wins. But my point is simply, it does punch through solutions, even if you might consider them ludicrous, undoable, but it shows that you're thinking. Anyway, that's what's happening in New York, and I think Mandami is sort of falling into that latter category of these bold solutions. Look, if you can claim the title of a socialist and still carry the sort of support that he does, that speaks to the frustration of New Yorkers, and that speaks to you doing something right. And Mandami flooding social media, walking among New Yorkers, not just for a commercial, but there's a sense that he's living the New York experience. So I think there's a lot of that going on. Anyway, I wish them all well, and much hugging and kissing to be.
I do hug
I got
and
it.
kiss people casually.
All right, yes.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Let's get into it. First of all, I wanted to mention there was a big quake in Alaska.
Yeah.
It was almost an 8.0 quake. It was 7.8.
Yeah, it was a big one.
Tsunami warnings, no damage.
They had the tsunami sirens go off in Kodiak, Alaska. You could hear them all over the place. Guess what we still don't have in San Francisco? On an earthquake.
Sirens?
Thank you. I mean, here we are, earthquake country on the coast, and they can't figure out this whole siren situation.
It really is true. I mean, how can you have the kind of threat that these coastal cities have presented by tsunamis and have no sirens? I don't know.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
The sirens, the tsunami sirens are not in place.
That's Kodiak, Alaska. Listen to that.
This is Kodiak, Alaska. If you're just listening, you're seeing sort of an Alaskan scene, a lot of green trees, and
that's how you do it.
Dude, that's eerie to hear that siren, isn't it? I mean, that's really like, oh my God, that
it's
just
a higher
makes you,
ground.
Yeah.
But you know what? You want to hear that when there's a chance that the tsunami could be coming.
Yeah.
In San Francisco, good luck. You're on your own.
Well, you're on your own on a lot of stuff in San Francisco.
They worried,
and I love San Francisco, but it just is.
They worried that the tsunami warning system, they used to test it every Friday at noon, and they worried that it could be hacked. So they, I guess, took it down because of that. And then there's all kinds of, monetary concerns and infighting about what to do about it. So there we have
monetary concerns, I think, lead that parade. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
Let's get into the mess that is the controversy that has engulfed this president and this administration around Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a horrible guy. He was also an immensely powerful guy when you consider the connective tissue that was Jeffrey Epstein and all of the people around him, some of the most powerful people in the world. Bill Clinton frequented Jeffrey Epstein's flights to various exotic ports of call. It's been suggested he went to Thailand with him, also the Epstein Island. Clinton was there. Bill Gates, Ehud Barak, of course, Prince Andrew. Is it Prince Andrew? Was that the guy? I always get my princes confused.
Got the right prince.
And so on. And then financiers. I'm leaving out Wexel, who had the fortune that Epstein was supposedly in charge of, and many other Wall Streeters and big money people. And these financiers were all connected to Jeffrey Epstein in one way or another. Were business deals made? Probably. But there was also, at the core of Jeffrey Epstein's world, was the trafficking of minors and the trafficking of these underage people, girls and boys. And the revelations around Jeffrey Epstein are known in part, but there's a whole file on Jeffrey Epstein. There's no question that there's a file, right? We know this, yes? Thousands of pages, not just 1,000-page, but thousands. And we know this from depositions, photographs, witness testimony. It's all there. It's undeniably there. And this isn't a file that was put together by Democrats. The charging of Jeffrey Epstein that ultimately led to his death happened under Donald Trump. In fact, this is how crazy this MAGAverse is and the defense of Donald Trump. When they circle their wagons, they lose track of what they're saying even. MAGA world is angry about this. Show me first, if you would, Albert, Trump's remarks, and then I want to show you how Bill O'Reilly, who's a big defender of Trump, it would seem, gets confused about the timeline himself and trying to blame Democrats. And they realize in the moment, you'll see it in a moment, he realizes, oh gosh, it's not on the Democrats' watch that all this stuff happened. The cover-up, start to finish. That is to say, the suicide, the files, it all happened on Trump's watch. But first, here's Trump in the White House.
President Trump lashing out at his own supporters amid the ongoing Republican outcry over his administration's decision not to release Justice Department files related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
I lost a lot of faith in certain people. Yeah, I lost because they got duped by the Democrats.
The president dismissing the interest by some in the MAGA world in Epstein as a Democratic distraction and chastising those supporters as, quote, weaklings.
It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net. And so they try and do the Democrats' work. They're wasting their time with a guy who obviously had some very serious problems, who died 3-4 years ago. I'd rather talk about the success we have with the economy, the best we've ever had, and all of the things we've done, including in the Middle East.
But the demands for public disclosure of Epstein-related evidence originated with some of the president's most outspoken supporters, some now serving in his administration, like FBI Director Kash Patel 2 years ago.
Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are.
This from the president's son.
How is it that my father can be convicted of 34 crimes, but no one on Epstein's list has even been brought to light?
And this was the president during the campaign.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because it's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would.
But last week, the Justice Department and FBI released a memo saying they had found no incriminating client list of Epstein's and no credible evidence Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals, and that they would make no further disclosure. Multiple federal law enforcement officials tell NBC News that memo accurately describes the findings of law enforcement in the Epstein investigation. The president saying it's up to Attorney General Pam Bondi whether to release the material.
If she finds any more credible information, she'll give that too. What more can she do than that? I mean, honestly, what more can she do? And we do have bigger problems.
We pressed him.
Your Attorney General isn't here, your FBI leadership. Do you still have confidence in that team, sir?
Totally. Now some top Republicans are downplaying any GOP divide.
I have confidence in the president and his team.
But after an array of outspoken Trump allies demanded the files be made public, there are more calls for the government information to be released.
The Epstein files need to be released.
I would say make it all public. NBC's Gary.
Okay, that's the overview. So you see how MAGA Nation, both those in power and those who remark on power and those who gave Trump power, the electorate, they're angry. And you find, as I say, this odd thing that happens as they circle their wagons around Trump to try to defend him. The timeline just doesn't work out. The cover-up with Epstein's suicide and then subsequent revelations about what he was awaiting trial for, it all happened on Trump's watch. The cover-up, if you want to see it as a cover-up, and I think it clearly is, it happened on Trump's watch. But watch, now this is a little lengthy clip, so stay with it. Watch as Bill O'Reilly tries to blame Democrats and is in denial of this timeline that I just described. Go ahead, Albert.
Why couldn't Pam Bondi say, if people are going to trust Donald Trump, and they should trust the government, to say, look,
I don't know.
Here are the Epstein files. Hold on. Here are the Epstein files. And yes, there's a lot of names. And by the way, We've investigated all of them, and we have cleared all of them. None of them have engaged in wrongdoing. Something about this, and I think what you said in the first part is actually what makes the most sense. This is a mystery. There's all sorts of explanations flying around and justifications, but there aren't any real answers.
Look, Leland, there's a reason why all criminal investigations are redacted when there is no prosecution, okay? But you can release names of somebody under investigation. That is absolutely legitimate to do. But in this case, as I pointed out 50,000 times, and as you well know, the press is not going to apply any context, nor are the gutter snipes on social media. If your name is in the Epstein file or papers, you're going to be attacked, period. That is what's going to happen. And Trump knows that. So I concur with him 100% that you don't throw names out there unless there's some kind of guilt or investigation attached to them.
Okay.
But it is a mystery, and I think not a smart thing, to create the perception that the Trump administration is hiding something. And that is the perception that is out there now. Tomorrow, if I were president, I would say to Miss Bondi, you get Merrick Garland, we'll call him up if we can find out where he is, and you two will answer general questions, which you and I can put names on.
And you and I know Garland's not going to show up. But the people who are showing up,
embarrass him.
The people who are showing up are Democrats on this issue. We'll play Hakeem Jeffries. Take a listen.
This is where things start to get pretty intense with O'Reilly.
The American people deserve to know the truth. What, if anything, is the Trump administration and the Department of Justice hiding?
All right, then Van Hollen, appropriations amendment. The
This is
provision
when O'Reilly
wait,
tries to
before
lean
you
in
wait.
and watch
Wait,
this.
before you get to anybody else, come back to me. I want to address the minority leader in the House. This is how disingenuous that comment was, and this is what infuriates me about these people. Jeffries knew the Biden administration had exactly the same thing the Trump administration has on Epstein. Exactly.
Right.
Because Epstein was convicted during the Biden administration. Not one time did Hakeem Jeffrey call for any exposition of what the Biden Justice Department knew. Not once. So this guy's a top phony, okay? He's a political player. He doesn't care about the truth.
Wait,
he doesn't care about the people.
Hold on. Bill.
This is what
hold on.
he does.
Hold on, Bill. Hold on. You said Epstein was convicted during the Biden administration. Epstein committed suicide during the Trump administration.
Yeah, so?
How is he convicted? How do you convict a guy who's dead?
Epstein was convicted in, I believe, okay, under Merrick Garland's Justice Department. That could be. Am I wrong on that? I don't think so. And then he was incarcerated, and then he committed suicide. Okay. The suicide thing is bull. I know the New York coroner's office very, very well. There's no way those people in there put a phony report about a suicide. No way. Impossible. And it's not hard to ascertain whether you committed suicide.
I think this is important. Bill, I think this is important. He was arrested in 2019, and he committed suicide in 2019. He died August 10th of 2019. So the Biden administration was not involved in a conviction or a trial of him. They were of his madam, of Ghislaine Maxwell.
Okay. And that's a good point of clarification. But he was arrested and indicted under Merrick Garland.
No, under Trump.
Who had all of the information.
Epstein was arrested, indicted, and committed suicide under Trump. In 2019, Trump was president. Merrick Garland was not the attorney general.
Okay, I stand corrected. So 19, that came in the first Trump administration, correct?
Yeah, and Bill Barr was the attorney general. Bill Barr was the guy who ordered the investigation into the suspected suicide.
Right. But then for 4 years, did you hear Hakeem Jeffries?
Right. Thank you, Albert. That I just love for the fact that Google it exactly.
Sounded really good until you got fact checked live on the air.
Yeah, I mean, you see how this store-bought rage that they're all loaded up with, and this kind of recriminatory anger that. But how can they yell about this when this happened on their watch? Bill, it didn't. But the reason that O'Reilly, first of all, it's delicious to watch O'Reilly get owned like that, and to see someone like Bill O'Reilly who fancies himself from sort of coming from on high to give you his opinions on any number of things and to really go on the jihad for the president, Trump, to defend him, not have his basic facts and timeline straight. It's crazy. So, exactly, O'Reilly loves Trump, says shadow producer Calvin Wong. So, Bill O'Reilly, though, is just an example of what's happening as there is thinner and thinner ice when it comes to trying to defend Donald Trump. Donald Trump is all over the Jeffrey Epstein files. They hung out together all the time. Not saying that Donald Trump was involved in any pedophilia or any of this stuff that's being clearly demonstrably talked about in these Epstein files. As I say, the files are filled with depositions, investigation that involve witnesses, all of these different materials. So we know what Epstein was about, and we can put together, based again on witness testimony, on depositions, et cetera, what and there were civil lawsuits about this. This stuff is available. We know in part fragments of what is in all of these files that people would like to see released, and it's really damning stuff. But it's damning about Epstein, and then by suggestion, all of these other people that he was involved with. Although some of those people he was involved with, and I'll include the Dershowitzes of the world, I mean, they are mentioned in these depositions in really damning ways. So let me just get back to Trump's problem. Trump's problem is that he is throughout these files, as I say, and so the release of these files is going to have his name all over it, like a bad smell. He knows it. Bondi knows it. Patel knows it. Bongino knows it. Now what? We're here. We promised we'd release them, but the king is all over the files. Don't know what to do. Here is what MAGA Nation, in the form of the Candace Owens of the world, where's that mashup, Albert? The Alex Jones, Candace Owens. Can you give me a little bit of that? These guys they're on blast about this. Here's a little of Alex Jones.
You talk about this, I'm going to excommunicate you. Well, you're not the Pope, bro.
Threat.
Millions of Americans are not satisfied with what we've been told. And we shouldn't be, because it's been contradictory and insulting to our intelligence every step of the way.
Trump should not be insulting and attacking the people who voted him in and supported him simply because they want answers on this notorious case of a high-profile individual.
Why did they say there was thousands of hours of tapes of people doing horrible shit? Why did they say that?
I can't reconcile this Donald Trump with the Trump that we're seeing right now, the Trump that is gaslighting the public right now, the Trump that I voted for across multiple elections. The Epstein scandal is definitely terminal cancer to Trump's MAGA movement.
Yeah. And so what does happen to Donald Trump? What does happen politically as he takes on so much water as a result of this scandal? I mean,
did you see that the MAGA are turning on, as you just kind of played in that video, MAGA are turning on themselves. They're not giving up. But there's a video I saw in the Guardian US version today where MAGA faithful are burning their MAGA hats because they're so upset over this whole Epstein thing that they're throwing them in the fire pit and they're setting their MAGA hats on fire. This is it.
I mean, this is a disillusioned group. They see that, here comes the new boss, same as the old boss. It's odd to me because if you just looked at the arithmetic and the calendar, you would have seen that the new boss, Donald Trump, when he was the new boss in his first term, he had total control over the Epstein files. The lie, if you will, about Epstein's suicide in prison, now covered by a 3-minute gap in the surveillance video of the prison completely buried by those in power at the time. There, we're showing you the burning of the MAGA hats. But they would realize that he was involved. He was the lead official and top executive in America, Donald Trump was, during this entire time that Epstein was incarcerated, awaiting trial, and then committed suicide. And so when you look at cover-up, you have to look at Trump 1, season 1, when he was, as I say, in control of all the information. Now that he's back in power, he's continuing where he left off. And the problem is, in those intervening years, there was so much of a cry for transparency, and Trump himself, and you saw his son calling for transparency as well. They made it clear they were going to release all of these files along with all the files on MLK, JFK, UFOs, etc. So what do? You realize on some level this guy's a fraud. Now, I'd suggest he's a fraud on things way more important. I mean, please don't misunderstand me. I don't mean to diminish the real victims of Jeffrey Epstein. But in terms of what's happening in America and worldwide, Donald Trump has fraudulently pursued a message about how he's going to change things, how he's going to improve life in America. That was all a fraud, I'd suggest. But the fraud that was associated with that didn't really punch through to MAGA. They were about other things, cultural wedge issues, these sorts of things. But now, as I always say, sex scandals really do cut through. People understand them. People become irate, appropriately in this case, because it involves children. Children are involved here. And you have Donald Trump continuing this cover-up. And it's no wonder he's continuing it, because he is all over those files. Not saying he was involved with children. But what I'm saying is, most clearly, and he admitted to it and talked about it, he was involved with Jeffrey Epstein. They were pals. They were international playboys. And so hanging out with this guy who, on some level, you're aware, and if you're not aware at the time, you're certainly aware now that you've seen all the information and investigative work, is involved with children in this way and trafficking them. It's a really ugly smell, and it's getting all over Donald Trump.
Do you remember before the election, both elections involving Trump, when he, or at least the second one, when he started laying, he started laying the groundwork early for, there's going to be cheating before any votes were even cast. It's almost like he was looking for a way out. He was looking for an excuse. He was looking to blame someone for him losing before the election even happened. It feels like yesterday when Trump blamed Obama and Biden for, he said, listen, if the documents or the files are even released, they're not even going to be reliable because, Obama and Biden, they have manipulated the files now. So anything in those files can't be trusted because the Democrats have their hands all over them. It's almost like another preemptive strike. Like he knows what you just said, that his names are going to be all over these files. So he's looking for a way of saying, see, now, even if my name's all over the files, the files can't be trusted because of the Democrats.
Yes, right. I think that's exactly right. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what's happening. I mean, there are a couple of things, and I will get to what I think is an even more dangerous strategy, or another strategy that he will pursue. But certainly the short-term strategy is it's a Democrat, and he will say Democrat hoax, right? Democratic concocted hoax now. This is their new hoax to put me throughout the files. I would say one important thing to that. Sir, you have control of the files. You couldn't have put together an administration more loyal than the one you have. You have Patel, Bondi, who will do whatever you want. You have the Justice Department completely filled with Trump loyalists. There's no way there's anything in those files that's concocted by Democrats, because no Democrats have control over anything anymore. You're in control. So that is really a weak argument for what will likely be, if we get to see anything, the revelations about the amount of time that Donald Trump spent with Jeffrey Epstein. He was on the plane and with Epstein all the effing time. And that then really won't carry the day, and many know it, and among them Elon Musk. In a series of posts on his social media platform X, Musk mocked Donald Trump and the wild claim that the files related to the federal investigation of Jeffrey Epstein, the late sex offender, longtime Trump friend, are a hoax from Democrats. Quote, wow, amazing that Epstein, quote, killed himself and Ghislaine is in federal prison for a hoax, Musk wrote. And this, again, speaks to the absurdity of it. Not a single Epstein client has been prosecuted. Not a single one, said Elon Musk. And in response to Tim Pool, who's a far-right podcaster, Trump is trying to nuke his base by insisting that any of his supporters who bought into a hoax created by Democrats were weaklings. Musk wrote, he should just release the files and point out which part is the hoax. Elsewhere on Musk's platform, Theo Vaughn shared video of J.D. Vance agreeing with him in an old interview. Quote, seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. This is an important thing. And Vaughn says, what changed? So you really see the way in which Trump takes on more and more water. Mike Pence saying it's time to release the files. And then Trump with all kinds of weird posts to try to throw people off the scent about Jeffrey Epstein. For example, there was this crazy declaration that Trump made about Coca-Cola, wasn't it, yesterday on X?
Yeah.
You have that, Albert? It's in the rundown. If you, I'll just read it for those who are listening to the podcast. I've been speaking to Coca-Cola about using, in capital letters, real cane sugar in Coke in the United States, and they have agreed to do so. I'd like to thank all of those in authority at Coca-Cola. This will be a very good move by them. You'll see, it's just better. But that was retweeted by Gavin Newsom, who said, oh, thank God, I've totally forgotten about the Epstein files now. So there is Trump drinking his delicious Coca-Cola while golfing. So let me tell you what I think will happen also, just to round this out, and then we'll move on. Trump's desperate. Trump is someone who is not going to ever admit blame, not going to ever do anything but try to point to others, and he's not going to do anything apart from trying to distract. So the distraction that's likely coming, I think, is a special prosecutor, not about the Epstein files. He doesn't want a special prosecutor on the Epstein files. That's been suggested by so many.
Lauren Boebert apparently is asking for that.
I mean, it's just absurd. He wants this Epstein file, he wants it deep sixed somewhere. But I do believe that he will begin his move against people like Comey and Brennan, who he's already targeted, and other high-profile Democrats. He'll go back to Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. He'll attack the Biden family more. He'll assign Justice Department lawyers to those kinds of cases, trying to elevate them. He'll go after Adam Schiff and anybody who can help to throw the MAGA world off the scent of Jeffrey Epstein. That's what I think is going to happen. You're going to see a lot more in the way of investigations that are associated with high-profile Democrats. He's going to try to create a scandal for the Democrats to throw the media and, as I say, this mob that wants the files released to throw them off that scent. So watch for that. I think it is coming. And then the last thing I'll point to is what happened yesterday. He dumped James Comey's daughter, who was apparently a distinguished prosecutor in the Southern District of New York. I say that because apparently if you look at her record in the Southern District, it was distinguished over a 10-year period. He fired her. I mean, she was fired, I should say. I'm sure she was fired, though, at the request and the demand of the President of the United States. So you see how he hates James Comey. I mean, by the way, I don't like James Comey. I think he threw the election for Donald Trump. It's such a weird thing that James Comey is on his enemies list, given the fact that James Comey is maybe one of the reasons that he became president. I mean, I think you can argue it. When Comey makes the announcement, the FBI makes the announcement that they're reopening an investigation into Hillary Clinton and her emails and the email server. 10 days he makes that announcement before the election? I mean, come on, man. So I'm not a Comey fan either, but Trump is, again, he wants Comey and he wants anything related to Comey, and as a result, he dumped or saw to it that Comey's daughter was dumped from the Southern District as a prosecutor. So I'll get David Katz to comment on that, but I think that's essentially the overview. Did I leave anything out, Albert, on the, was there any other video I wanted to show or not? Albert has, here he is. This is from Lawrence O'Donnell last night. Is that what this is? Yeah. This was sent to me by one of our viewers and listeners, and let's give it a look real quick.
Instead, they want to talk about the Epstein hoax. And the sad part is it's people that are really doing the Democrats' work. They're stupid people.
They're stupid people. He's talking about Republicans. And no, the sad part is not that we're talking about the Epstein files. The sad part is what happened to those little girls when Donald Trump's friend, Jeffrey Epstein, got his hands on them. Michael Flynn served 24 days as Donald Trump's first national security advisor before being fired by Donald Trump and then convicted of federal crimes for which Donald Trump, of course, pardoned him today. Michael Flynn wrote this on social media.
Oh, stop for a second. I just want to say this about Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn, just give me 10 seconds on Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn is an awful guy. He's a Christo-fascist. He is a jihadist. He would like to make America a Christian nation. He clearly was in league, it would seem, with the Russians. Both Obama felt that way. Ultimately, Trump fired him as well, as you just heard O'Donnell say. So when we talk about Michael Flynn, please, I don't want to lift Michael Flynn to some level of holiness. He is not worthy of that. But look at what he wrote. Go ahead, Albert.
Donald Trump. I hesitated to write this, however, with the utmost respect and deference to you for all you've withstood. Few know it better than me, what the deep state can do when they want to turn on a person. The Epstein affair is not about who killed him or if he committed suicide personally. I'm glad this known pedophile is dead, but neither is this a hoax. This issue goes beyond all that. There are millions of Americans who've overwhelmingly voted for you to be our president, and we want you to be massively successful. No one more than me. All we want at this stage is for a modicum of trust to be reestablished between our federal government and the people it is designed to serve. That's all, period, exclamation point. An element that is of great importance surrounding this Epstein affair is the fact this man was a known pedophile, had a list of clients who represented the upper crust of society and likely did untoward things to children on his island, in his homes in New York City and New Mexico, and maybe elsewhere. He was convicted of it, regardless of what class of society abuses and commits crimes against children. It is never acceptable. This is where this argument went off the rails. It is not about Epstein or the left. It is about committing crimes against children. If there are leaks inside of our country that have committed crimes against children, shame on them. they must be held accountable. A sampling of Trump-supporting media today was not supportive of Donald Trump on the Epstein files. Alex Jones spoke directly and hysterically to Donald Trump on his program.
You have put the gun in your mouth and ours collectively. Stop it. Stop it. Stop. 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 For God's sakes, don't attack your constituents when they have morals and aren't robots.
All right. Very good.
Did we just hear Alex Jones talk about having morals?
Yeah, it's an odd.
Wow. Okay.
By the way, Alex Jones, I guess, just what does he do? He reconstitutes himself somehow, and he's back on this InfoWars. I thought InfoWars was over. I thought he was broke. I don't know. He's got a pretty nice set with multiple cameras, and he does his thing. He, players got to play, I guess. Is that what's happening?
Wow.
Crazy. That's what's happening a bit. I mean, Jamie Raskin was very good on this as well. I didn't know if you wanted to play that, Kim. I know you like that cut, but there's no shortage of people on both sides of the aisle saying,
even
hey.
Mike Pence is calling for the release of the Epstein files.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Carolyn Leavitt stands up at the White House and says, the media just needs to stop talking about this. Americans don't care. Well, clearly, Americans care.
Yeah. Well, you know who is, just to round it out, in Epstein land, looking for a break and a pardon? Anybody? Who is looking for a break and a pardon now that the Epstein thing is just a hoax and there's no there, the way Donald Trump is saying?
Ghislaine
Maxwell, exactly. Her family writing to Trump and saying, as questions continued about whether the Trump administration had acted with transparency in releasing files related to the crimes and death of Jeffrey Epstein, the family of his co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, called on the president to treat her fairly. Attorneys for Maxwell, she was found guilty in December of 2021 of conspiring to sexually exploit girls with Epstein, have asked the Supreme Court to review her case. The Supreme Court, claiming that Epstein's federal non-prosecution agreement in Florida should also have prevented her from facing federal charges in New York. The Department of Justice earlier this week urged the Supreme Court to reject that argument, which lower courts have already done on the basis that New York prosecutors weren't bound by that Florida deal. I'd be surprised if President Trump knew his lawyers were asking the Supreme Court to let the government break a deal. Maxwell's attorney, David Oscar Marcus, said, he's the ultimate deal maker, and I'm sure he'd agree that when the United States gives its word, it should keep it. Our sister Ghislaine did not receive a fair trial, said the family. The deal was Epstein in 2007 avoided a lifetime in prison in a non-prosecution agreement negotiated with Alex Acosta. Remember Alex Acosta? He ended up as labor secretary in Trump's first term. And so Alex Acosta, who was then, because the heat was so hot around him, let go by the Trump administration. Alex Acosta was another example of those who acted on behalf of powerful people to make a deal with Epstein and to essentially allow him not to really serve any time. Remember, that was a whole thing where he was essentially just going back and forth from home. He was able to stay at home. He never had to actually serve any time incarcerated. Anyway, it is true that Ghislaine Maxwell's people are leaning on the Trump administration heavily to review her case. If there's nothing there, then she should be able to walk. And many say that, and it won't happen now, but it might happen. In fact, I think it likely will happen at the end of his administration. He'll pardon her, and Ghislaine Maxwell will walk. And, you know, having pardoned so many, if you look at his pardons there, we're going to have the pardon attorney for the federal government on the show here I think in the next couple of weeks. She's left the federal government now, but she can speak quite brilliantly about this, as David Katz does, also weighing in on these various pardons of everybody from J6ers to potentially a Ghislaine Maxwell. So that's the position of the Maxwell family looking at things now.
Unless Ghislaine Maxwell speaks, right? If she opens her mouth and accuses the Trump administration, or if she's summoned before Congress and actually says all the things that she knows, then kiss that pardon goodbye. So in that case, then they control what she has to say.
Yeah, I mean, Kim makes a really good point. The fact that she could sing like a canary is the thing that might keep her in prison. I suspect that she's ready to make whatever deal, either implicit or explicit, about keeping her mouth shut. Just get me out of this place of federal prison. So now let's, for the moment, move on. I've got David Katz coming up, the former federal prosecutor, now defense attorney, one of the great legal analysts in the English-speaking world. He'll join us in just a few moments. So we'll
The Mark Thompson Show.
We'll pick up the thread with him there. I wanted to quickly get to some comments. This from Lucy McAllister.
Hey.
Come on. I have some news for Lucy McAllister, who hit us with a $20 super sticker saying, "I've missed listening live," she says. Lucy, my favorite McAllister, as you're aware. Lucy is actually number 2. And if you'll remember to yesterday's show, Julia is my favorite McAllister.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Then, and I barely know Julia, which may be the key to it. But then Lucy, and then Kim, I suppose, then Jacob would be there as well. So
On the list.
He's in the top 5.
Yeah.
And, I throw in her husband, David, who seems like a good guy.
Yeah.
So he rounds out the top 5. So McAllister family, very well represented, but Lucy is number 2, my second favorite, next to Julia, who is, she's my real fave. Pretty amazing kid. $5 super sticker from Eugenio. What up, Eugenio? They are now. Nice to see you. Big shout out. Where's my big shout out drop, Albert? Do you
Big shout out.
Thank you. All right. Kelly Malloy. Kelly, an OG of this show. Thank you for the $2 super sticker. And Wes, we've already mentioned. Big shout out to all of you. We're a crowd-funded show, so thank you those who help support the show. Patreon and PayPal links under all our videos. Anything that you could get on the board with helps support this program and keep it on. We're independent media. We're not here for any other reason than our viewers and listeners support us. So we try to work hard for you, get you not only great guests, but compilations of important media and stories that you should know about in the limited time we have. We do a 2-hour show every day, Monday through Friday. It's not easy, and I know it's not easy to part with money. So thank you for those many who are part of our Patreon and PayPal community and who also hit us with the super stickers and super chats every day. And again, they're live links to Patreon and PayPal. By the way, if you want to reach the show, Albert, maybe you can put up the email address is themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. If you have something you want to share, or reaction of some kind, you can reach us there. You have to put the in there because otherwise you go somewhere else. themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. And you can send us whatever you've got.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
Yes, positive letters are always welcome. Okay. This from Harry. When someone tells you who they are, you should listen, says Harry Magnan. Yeah, ain't it true? Thank you for the super chat, Harry. Trump's militia is in place. No need for MAGA, says Jim Eaton. This is interesting, and I don't know that should be dismissed too quickly. I do believe that much of what's happening with ICE agents, unidentified federal agents, I guess they are, or the independent militia, covering their faces, unmarked vehicles, unmarked uniforms, again, completely unidentified. They are in place on some level, you could argue. It may just be wanting to help out with the Trump MAGA movement, or it may be creating domestic unrest. Hard to say. And to be fair, it may not even be literally strategized as such by Trump, but he knows that those people are out there. They're part of the J6 community that was pardoned. And they are ready to get into action any way they feel they must. So Jim, I think, is onto something in a sense. Franco with a $10 super chat. I need more popcorn, he says. Yeah, there's a sense that this is all of a sudden a comeuppance. Sounds like Musk sure is sorry that he got duped. He's wrecked his brand, Richard Delamater says. Yeah, he wrecked his brand, but he just picked up a $280 million contract with the Department of Defense for Grok to be the AI dedicated to the Pentagon. So for a wrecked brand, he's still doing pretty well with the amount of government contract work that he's getting. Uncle Scrooge says only Mexican Coca-Cola uses real cane sugar. I thought only the worst comes from Mexico, Uncle Scrooge says. He's even drinking a Mexican Coke. Wow. Is that, what? I know. That stuff's expensive now with the tariffs. Sandra Thomas, $10 super sticker. Sandra, big shout out.
Big shout out.
And a thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate that. Liz B with a $5 super sticker and a thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, do appreciate that. All right, guys. Thank you. Appreciate everybody being here. Katz in hour 2 of this show.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it is Grok, the AI with Nazi tendencies. That's exactly right. Tendencies is polite. I mean, it's unbelievable how Grok will default to some pretty nasty stuff. So Kim will slip in some news of the moment. She's on Bongino watch. Remember, he said, it's her or me. It's you get rid of Pam Bondi or I'm leaving, said Bongino. That was last week. Well, apparently they're both still there. So you just can't count on anything anymore, can you? You just, I mean.
I do hug and kiss people casually.
You can count on Cuomo hugging and kissing. Thank goodness for that. Smash the like button if you would. It helps us in the YouTube universe. Kim's News and David Katz next.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. About $9 billion in Doge spending cuts will soon face a House vote. The cuts would be to public broadcasting, global health programs, and some more foreign aid as well. Republican senators narrowly passed the package earlier today. Speaker Mike Johnson now saying the plan was to vote on this today. Might be pushed back until tomorrow, though.
But I do want to just mention, this is not, most people are aware of this, but I just want to underscore it. This is not money that was going to be appropriated. This money that was appropriated has been clawed back, meaning this money has already been okayed by Congress. This was a special move, this rescission, to claw back that money, $9 billion. $9 billion is nothing. $9 billion isn't even a rounding error. That's how little it is. And yet it's critical for the funding of PBS, NPR, and foreign aid. And it's already been approved. But now it has been clawed back, at least on the Senate side. It has to go to the House, as Kim says.
In other news, I lost my place. A lot of Americans talking about Epstein have questions about the Jeffrey Epstein case. According to a Reuters Ipsos poll, 69% of respondents said they believe there's been a concealment of facts on Epstein's clients by the federal government, while only 6% said they did not believe the facts were kept a secret. The Trump administration is facing a backlash, as Marco's been mentioning, over the issue after the Department of Justice and the FBI released a memo concluding Epstein did not have a client list and he kept to blackmail high-profile figures. So Americans aren't buying that. In San Francisco, Alcatraz may be back open as a prison at some point, although the White House has made no formal announcement. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she has been informed now of an event out at Alcatraz Island to highlight the plan to turn Alcatraz back into a federal prison. The Rock as it's called, has been closed as a federal prison since 1963. God, imagine the money it would take to redo that place.
Oh, it's completely ludicrous. It's, again, another high-profile, ludicrous idea, very Trumpian, wasteful, doesn't make sense, logistically impossible, but let's throw a lot of money at it. It'll get some headlines. Everybody knows Alcatraz. It's absurd. Absolutely absurd.
If you were trying to distract the public with something, that might be a good thing.
Well, he's going to throw a lot of stuff at the distraction model. So, expect that just to be part of the parade.
Multiple Democrats walked out of a hearing on Emile Beauvais' federal judge nomination. The Senate Judiciary Committee set to vote on Beauvais' nomination. Beauvais has been accused of dropping corruption charges against New York City Mayor Adams in exchange for help on immigration. He has denied those allegations. There are some protests taking place around the United States today. The Good Trouble Lives On demonstrations are honoring late Congressman and civil rights activist John Lewis. Lewis made the phrase good trouble popular when he spoke of nonviolent protests and challenges to civil rights infringements. President Trump underwent some vascular testing after experiencing swelling in his legs. That, according to the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt. Leavitt also spoke about pictures online that show bruising on Trump's hands. She said it's due to frequent handshaking. Officials are not stopping the search for missing flood victims in central Texas. Officials in Kerr County had to put a hold on search efforts after 3 days of heavy rain again. Crews searching for the bodies of 97 people now across the entire state. At least 134 died due to those floods. 2 Republican lawmakers in California, including Assemblymember Carl DeMaio, are advocating for a measure to be added to the 2026 ballot mandating voter ID and proof of citizenship. The proposal includes checking citizenship during voter registration and requiring ID at polling places here in California. Mail-in voters would provide the last 4 digits of a government-issued ID like a social security number. California is one of 14 states and the District of Columbia that do not require voter ID. And lastly, because I know we're getting to David Katz here, Connie Francis, the iconic singer who was one of the top-selling female artists of all time, has died at the age of 87.
Albert, do you have a picture of Connie Francis? Can you and your little Google machine maybe get that going? I mean, it's actually...
Google it.
She was very high profile. I think she was sort of a sexy singer and kind of a big deal.
She died last night at the age of 87 years old. She was taken to the hospital 2 weeks ago with complaints of severe pain. One of her close friends confirming the news on Facebook. We know there she is. She sold millions of records through the 1950s and 60s with hits like Who's Sorry Now, Where the Boys Are. She was the first woman to have a #1 hit on the Billboard Hot 100 with 1960's Everybody's Somebody's Fool. And she made it into the Spotify charts just this year thanks to a TikTok trend of using her 1962 song Pretty Little Baby. She was born in New Jersey in 1937, eventually changed her name from Concetta Francanero to Connie Francis. As
oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I also didn't know that they reconstituted her song for current day. Yeah, that's what can happen with the
it's a TikTok
technology.
song.
Yeah.
There she is. She's passed away at the age of 87. And this report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. I have a big old cup of vanilla tea. I'm so happy. The coffee, the tea, the best. You will love it. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com is the website. Check out the tasting notes, because if you like a light roast or a medium roast or a dark roast or whatever it is, they'll spell it all out just for you on the website. So take a look at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And if you find something you like, you get to the checkout, please enter the code MARKT, no spaces. It'll get you 10% off your total.
Oh, and I'm loving it right now. I'm still loving that. I wonder if Katz drinks coffee. We ought to send him a little Coachella Valley coffee. It's so delicious. You will love it. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. All organic, women-owned businesses. And we're so proud that they are part of our family.
Now they have the lion's mane mushroom coffee too.
Oh man, that is what I'm drinking right now. It is insanely good, and it comes to you guys. Try it. Jump on there, and sometimes you get the 2-pound bag or the 5-pound bag, whatever. You get the subscriptions available. Whatever you order, you get 10% off using our discount code MarkT at checkout. So check them out, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. MarkT at checkout for 10% off.
I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
What up, everybody? Hour 2, always on a Thursday, brings one of our favorite guests we've ever had on the show. He is one of the leading voices when it comes to legal analysis across the English-speaking world. He was just on British television and radio just yesterday.
What?
I know. He's very popular, in demand. He's generous enough to join us on Thursdays. How about it for the former federal prosecutor, now defense attorney in Southern California? He is the great David Katz.
Great to be with you, Mark.
Hello, sir. Well, David, I'll ask you to first talk about something that has been buried a bit because of all the Epstein stuff. And we will get to Epstein. But it's this Beauvais thing. The confirmation is Emile Beauvais. And the Democrats walked out of the confirmation hearing in the Senate. And they did it, obviously that's a high-profile thing, but they did it, I think, in part because they view Beauvais as such a functionary of Donald Trump. He was Donald Trump's former personal attorney. And they also did it to hear Sheldon Whitehouse talk about it as a protest against the fact that they weren't following the basic rules. And that's why Cory Booker, I believe, led many Democrats to walk out of that confirmation hearing. Can you comment on Beauvais and then that move?
Sure. Well, he is one of Trump's henchmen, if ever there was one. And the idea is that he would not give up his great and exciting for him job at the Department of Justice just to be on the Third Circuit. With all respect for the hundreds of federal appellate judges around the country, he's on his way to the Supreme Court, people fear. And someone said about him that, say what you want about the 3 picks by Trump the first term, they were all intellectuals. This guy's a street fighter. And so it's kind of weird to imagine this level of street fighter being on the U.S. Supreme Court. I mean,
he's being confirmed for the Third Circuit right now, is what you're saying?
Right now is for the Third Circuit. But Mark, my point is, why would he leave this great job at the Department of Justice, where he has huge power over ICE, over the FBI, over all the U.S. attorneys' offices around the country, to be on the Third Circuit? With all respect to it, it's the appellate court that covers New Jersey and Pennsylvania, Delaware. It's a big deal. It's a big deal, Mark, but come on. He's on his way to the Supreme Court. He's youngish, and he's very much in Trump's corner. And that's what people are worried about. He wouldn't attract that much attention if he were just, with all due respect to the appellate courts, a Third Circuit judge. And it wouldn't make any sense, as I say, to give up such a powerful job. So that's what people are worried about. And in terms of his own personal background, the things that he's done, he's got some terrible reviews from people who've worked with him, that he's a martinet, that he orders people around, that he has real temper problems. And then on top of that, they have this great piece of evidence, which is that they have someone who was a colleague of his, who was in a meeting with him, who's willing to say, he's a whistleblower now. He's resigned or been fired by the Department of Justice, and he is willing to say under oath in front of the nation, in front of Congress, that he was in a meeting where this Beauvais guy said, F the courts. We're going to do what we want, and if the courts don't like it, we're going to still do what we want. That is obviously not judicial temperament. That is not respect for the rule of law, and he should not be confirmed to the Third Circuit or to any federal court. Having said that, now that's going to be, if you remember back to Kavanaugh, there was this Dr. Ford that came out of the past 25 or 30 years. The Republicans controlled the Senate then, and yet they let her testify. And her testimony changed a lot of people's minds, and it made his confirmation, Kavanaugh's, nip and tuck. He just made it after that outburst he had against the Democrats and against the Clinton conspiracy that was supposedly out to get him. And Kavanaugh's now on the U.S. Supreme Court. And I think one reason, Mark, then that they called her to the stand, even though the Republicans and McConnell were in charge, was that it became so popular. It was like, wait a second, if this woman's telling the truth, and then people got into it, it became kind of a bit of a soap opera. His has not become as much of a soap opera. So Katz, I fear that he's going to make it. And I fear that that witness who's willing to testify under oath will not be called, that the Republicans will block him, and there will not be another Dr. Ford Kavanaugh, see them both testify on national TV and see who you credit, who you believe. I don't think they're going to call that lawyer to the stand, even though he's ready and willing to testify under oath.
It's pretty amazing that a whistleblower like that, with such damning evidence, is dismissed completely. As we know, the Republicans control the committee, so they have the power to dismiss it. But it would seem that any kind of earnest investigation would at least hear this. But the argument is, and Grassley's argument, who heads up the committee, he says, now these are media-fueled rumors, and I'm not going to be part of the character assassination that's associated with them.
Well, that's completely disingenuous. That doesn't make any sense at all. Dr. Ford, who was allowed to testify by a Republican-controlled Senate, was, having an allegation. It was, tabloid-esque, but still she had an allegation from 25 or 30 years ago when Kavanaugh was a late teenager. This is about something that happened a couple of months ago right. with another lawyer who's willing to testify about something that's just a couple of months old. He should at least be heard. What I'm hoping is that they can somehow force this to happen. I don't know why. I know the Republicans control everything and the Democrats don't, but I imagine they could have some kind of a rump session where they could put this fellow on the stand and let him give, these folks show up with a prepared statement. Let him read his prepared statement to the nation and say, why won't the Republicans let this come in as testimony? He's just said it to us. He's told us he's going to say this under oath. This is his testimony. Let this man be heard. And it's pretty shocking what he has to say. I mean, if you believed everything Dr. Ford said, it was shocking what Kavanaugh did, 25, 30 years ago. But this is awfully shocking. It happened a couple of months ago. Here's someone going to be put on the federal judiciary, maybe on his way to the U.S. Supreme Court, who doesn't respect the rule of law, who says if the judges rule against us, you lawyers, I'm paraphrasing him, but F the courts. They find a way around them. And this reminds me of Giuliani, the way Giuliani approached the courts. It's one thing to all this PR and to put out all this nonstop propaganda. We can't, under the First Amendment, we can't stop Fox. We can't stop anybody who puts out this unrelenting, nonstop propaganda that's not fact-based. That's not what our courts are about. When you talk about the courts, you have to present law and facts that you research. You have to vouch for what you're saying. Doesn't mean your client has to be right. Doesn't mean your position has to be right. But you have to vouch for it in a serious sort of way. And to say you're going to not respect the courts, you're going to work around the courts, this man is not, he's not judicial timber.
Well, and just to remind everybody, he was one of the prosecutors involved, and one of the Justice Department officials, might be the better way to put it, that got rid of, either dismissed or reassigned prosecutors that were associated with the January 6th cases. So anybody who worked on the January 6th cases and prosecuting and convicting those January 6thers, they were dismissed or reassigned. And Beauvais was the guy who was the principal associate designated to handle all of that stuff. So he's as you say, he's a loyalist. And in listening to a White House today talking about what you were talking about, which is, hey, why can't we just at least talk about the objection to him, at least have a vote on the objection, at least have the testimony, and the fact that it's being railroaded through is something that the Democrats apparently, I guess, can't do anything about, short of walking out of the confirmation hearing, and then it's a 12-0 vote to confirm him, or at least move his nomination forward.
In Texas, they can actually deny there being a quorum. And we have that every now and then where the Democrats, who are always in the minority in the state houses in Texas, they can only stop legislation by walking out and denying a quorum. I don't think that in the Senate, the Democrats can do that. I think this is symbolic. I think they could lose 12-10, or if they all walk out, they can lose 12-0. And I think it's dramatic to walk out. But I think the reality is they're going to lose 12-0. The good news for the rule of law is that the entire Senate may yet reject Beauvais, because there are the two female Republicans. They just stood up again on the rescission. They seem to be pretty solid for the rule of law. I think they'll probably vote against Beauvais. So it's just 2 votes away. If all they need is Tillis, maybe McConnell, Tillis, and maybe somebody else, and they can stop him. 51-49. There's nothing Vance can do if they can muster 51 votes against him. But this really is meaningful for Trump, because this is what Trump wants to do. Trump is going to put a lot of capital, political capital, into this, because this man is he's on his way to the U.S. Supreme Court. It's shocking. But in 3 years, Thomas or Alito will resign. That's my prediction. It won't be Cannon. Loose Cannon is crying down in Miami area. It's not going to be her after all she did to save Trump's bacon. It's not going to be her. She's going to be 90 years old and still be a district judge down there.
Another disappointed Trump
this
customer.
Is the guy.
Yeah,
this is the guy.
Yeah. So that's the situation, and so there's a potential. You're saying that he might be rejected. I think one of the things that's interesting, I do want to segue to what happened with the Epstein related case, and with the Comey daughter, who was apparently a fairly distinguished prosecutor, just being dismissed from the Southern District. But what I just want to mention on my way to that story is that because of all the Epstein stuff, I feel like the Beauvais controversy and his corruption, his clear corruption, and being a bagman for Trump, essentially a legal bagman, it's being buried under the Epstein stuff. So the one benefit that Trump is getting from all of this Epstein stuff, he wants it to go away, but it's burying a bit the controversies and the true corruption associated with Beauvais. And now to the rest.
Can I say one last thing about Beauvais?
Yeah, please.
Beauvais is also the villain of the Mayor Adams piece, because Mayor Adams is being prosecuted. He's got a defense, on legally, make your motions. If he's got a defense on the facts, go to jury trial. It takes 12 to convict beyond a reasonable doubt. Of course, Mayor Adams doesn't want to do any of that. He wants to get this pardon. And if you remember, Beauvais is the guy who sets up the sword of Damocles, as it were, pardon or dismissal. I should say dismissal, not pardon. They're going to dismiss this case, but without prejudice was the idea.
Again, this is the case against, please, against Mayor Adams in New York. This is a corruption case. And you're saying that they were dropping it, but they didn't drop it. This is the with prejudice stuff. Go ahead.
Right. But beyond January 6th, which is another fiasco and scandal that Beauvais was involved in, Beauvais was also involved in this one, which was 5 prosecutors quit. And then he needed somebody to put their name on this request to dismiss in front of the federal judge. He eventually put his own name, and he got some flunky in Washington who wouldn't resign, but cared about his career, whatever it was, whatever he cared about, maybe actually believed in this. But anyway, he and Beauvais put their name on this request to dismiss. The federal judge appointed an independent advisor, and ultimately the federal judge said, look, I can't prosecute you. Under the separation of powers, I can't prosecute you, Mayor Adams, but I'm not going to live with this idea of without prejudice. If you're dismissing this case, it's with prejudice. So Adams doesn't actually have to come through. They don't have a sword of Damocles over Mayor Adams's head, but people are very worried that he's allowing ICE to do more raids in New York City than somebody who is really out for the interests of people in New York City would do, and that he's allowing the ICE to go into the Rikers Island prison and other places like that where they weren't allowed to go into before, because he feels Mayor Adams so indebted to Beauvais and Trump because they gave him his liberty. Think about that.
Yeah.
The sitting mayor of New York owes his liberty, owes his not being in federal court and facing prison to Beauvais and Trump.
Yeah, Beauvais made the deal, and Trump is the one who, crafted the deal, if you want to think of it that way.
The only thing I don't hold against Beauvais is that he was the criminal defense attorney for Trump. I mean, for that,
people need a criminal defense attorney. He was the guy, right?
Everyone should have the best. Everyone should have the best criminal defense attorney they have, and nobody has accused him of any misconduct or any impropriety in the representation of Trump as criminal defense lawyer.
Now, to the Southern District of New York and Maureen Comey, the prosecutor in the Jeffrey Epstein case. Yesterday, she's fired. No specific reason given for her termination. And her last name being Comey didn't help her, I'm sure, because Donald Trump no friend of Comey. I was mentioning in the first hour, that's always ironic to me because I believe that Comey helped throw the election in 2016 for Trump, as he announced 10 days before the election that he was reopening the case against Hillary Clinton, the investigation on Hillary Clinton's emails, et cetera. In any case, she was fired. Give me a moment on this. Apparently, she had a pretty distinguished history in that office. Her most recent case is the Diddy case, or the Sean Combs case, which didn't go well for federal prosecutors, I guess. But I don't know that that was her responsibility. But in any case, I wonder if you can give me a minute on what happened here.
Sure. Let me say one thing about Comey first. He threw the case in the sense that, in one sense of the word threw, by his poor decision. But I don't
election,
think he threw it. Yeah, in the election 2016. But I don't think he threw it in the sense that he was in the bag for Trump or against Hillary. I think that if you remember, the Department of Justice, the Attorney General, had to recuse herself after she'd gotten on a plane with Clinton and was all happy talking with Clinton on this plane. And then so she recused herself. That left the head of the FBI to make the decision. She should have made that decision, the Attorney General, and she should have not released and not made the statements that Comey. So Comey ended up being in charge of the thing. And I think Comey, he's always hit me as a kind of a very self-assured, maybe to the point of arrogance. But he made that call, and I think he made it, from his perspective, the right call. I don't think he was trying to help Trump or hurt Hillary. That's my take on it. Now he's got this daughter. The problem with being a Nepo baby is most of the time it helps you. The particular moment, being this Nepo baby is not really helping Maureen Comey, is it? I think that, this shows how Trump has such poor advice. He has such a D or F team of advisors over there, because this is another unforced error, like so many things in Jeffrey Epstein. The best thing to do, J. Edgar Hoover knew how to do this thing. She just wouldn't get any really good cases after this, right? He controls the Southern District of New York. You keep her on. She doesn't get really good cases. She's still a government employee. Now I expect to see her in Congress or in front of many committees, being able to say exactly what she wants to say about what happened in the Epstein, to the point that she doesn't have attorney-client privilege or there's not ethics violations. She can speak more freely about what happened in the Epstein prosecution than she could have if she was still a Department of Justice prosecutor. So what Trump thinks he's accomplishing with all this, obviously these orders came right from Trump. There's no doubt about it. So her name was Comey. And I saw one of these guys, there's an African-American Republican, big loudmouth from Florida. He's a Congress member, but a super loudmouth. And they said to her, well, do you think it had anything to do with her losing that case? Oh, yeah, she didn't manage to convict Diddy. If anyone thinks this had anything to do with her not convicting Diddy, first of all, there were 7 people on this trial team. She might have been the head of the trial team, but there were 7 people responsible for prosecuting Diddy. I had my own questions about it. I think it was pretty controversial with some of your audience. I had my own questions about the case. But to say that the case didn't have a good reason to be brought, to say that the case wasn't righteous in a lot of ways, to say she did anything wrong, she did convict him of 2 counts. He's not thinking what a failure she is. Diddy's still sitting in jail right now awaiting his sentencing. So the idea is she got fired because of Diddy. So I guess my thought on it was a huge unforced error. I think probably he certainly helped her career. I expect that she'll, when the Democrats get back in power, I assume that she'll be the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York. She's got every esteemed thing in front of her. All the law firms are on her side. She'll have no trouble being hired by any law firm that she wants to go to. And it just seems like he accomplished absolutely nothing, Trump. Maybe he was trying to divert attention, but you can't get people's minds off Jeffrey Epstein because of some prosecutor in New York named Comey. People don't buy it.
More to the point, I would say, when you fire the prosecutor who was involved with the Jeffrey Epstein case. I mean, that gets the Epstein case back into the news. But she's referred to, she's not referred to as the prosecutor. She's not referred to as the prosecutor who handled the P. Diddy case. She's referred to as the prosecutor who handled the Jeffrey Epstein case. If you want to get rid of Jeffrey Epstein, you don't have anything to do with this woman.
It's just, to me, it's a huge unforced error by Trump. And, someone who does not wish Trump and his agenda well, I'm more than happy to see him step in doo-doo over and over again. But this is another stepping in doo-doo, because this makes no sense. And to the extent that he wants to quiet Jeffrey Epstein down, he just fired the prosecutor who prosecuted Jeffrey Epstein. And I think that there's a lot of things that she can talk about, whether she will or not. But I think there are some things that ethically she can talk about. She's going to have to get really good legal advice, but it's going to be interesting. One of the interesting things, you see people like Alan Dershowitz, who appears on TV and kind of implies that Trump isn't in any danger from these records and he knows something. What a pity he can't talk more about it. But no one in office is in there. Oh, yeah, maybe some people who used to be in office are in there. Are you supposed to, infer that that's, Biden people, that's Democrats? And so I think a lot of them are I think they should be very careful what they say. But to the extent that she can say anything, she can say more now that she's not a Department of Justice prosecutor than she was yesterday.
The
able to talk about
purging of the administration and of DOJ of people for whom they have no love, not based on work, but based on association. In this case, it's Epstein related, or it's really because her last name is Comey. I think, as you point out, it's really the latter. But they're doing the same thing at the FBI. They're dry cleaning the FBI of anyone who had anything to do with J6 investigations, with anyone who even, you saw that case of the FBI. This is these are pristine records of hardworking FBI people who are dismissed because of their association with Peter Strzok, who was the FBI agent who was texting with they had that whole, it was, Trump was smearing him, calling it was a FBI love affair or whatever. He was anti-Trump, it would seem, or I don't even know that was ever really shown that he was anti-Trump, Peter Strzok. But in any case, the idea that if you simply are in touch with Strzok at all, you get dismissed from the FBI is not a wild notion. It's the notion that's in place at the FBI. And there are a bunch of FBI agents that fall into that category. And that's leaving out the lie detector tests that they are imposing at the FBI as well. So this idea of dismissing people with the wrong last name or people who were even receiving promotions under the last administration, they go back and they either get rid of those people, reassign those people, or demote them from the promotion. It's crazy. They want nothing with anyone having anything to do with Biden ascending to power within the DOJ.
Mark, this is like a stress test for the FBI, and the FBI has, come through a lot of stuff. There have been investigations over the years and stuff like this. I think this is about the most severe stress test that I've seen in, my decades of doing this. First of all, a lot of them have been commandeered, dragooned into doing work with ICE. And so out here in California, for instance, it's not lost on people that, the FBI is going around now helping ICE, working with ICE. You see those FBI jackets that hopefully you see at, major terrorism and, cases that we all agree ought to be brought. You see those same jackets on these ICE raids in LA, in the Garment District, and all kinds of people getting arrested. I've had FBI agents say to me, because I have a case now where, I'm working with the FBI on behalf of a client. And it's like, we got to have this meeting now because the next month we're going to be running around, working with ICE, doing this kind of stuff. And they don't say it in any kind of political way or anything like that. But it's absolutely clear that a huge number of them, and they're dropping cases that are really important. They tell people, get off these wiretaps where you're going to get after organized crime. They're very time intensive to monitor wiretaps. They don't have time to do it. Why? Because they're running around picking up people at car washes and nannies, and they have their FBI jackets on. If you think the FBI likes this, if you think this is what they join the FBI, a lot of these people are lawyers and accountants, have terrific training, these FBI agents. On top of that, they're also know how to use guns. They know how to do all the tactical stuff. They're very accomplished people. And meanwhile, they've been dragooned into this ICE force. They don't like it. And now all these people have been fired. And you look at Trump got rid of, you go down the top, like 8 people in the FBI. I think he got rid of 7 of 8, or did he get rid of 8 of 8? You just go right down the list. That poor guy who got denied his pension, he ended up winning and getting his pension back. Comey, there were other people on the list. Now he talks about the former head of the FBI, this fellow who just left as well, deep state, Democrat, Biden. I forget his name, the guy who just was forced to resign.
Yeah, he was because he was a Trump appointment.
He was picked by Trump. He was Chris Christie's lawyer. This guy,
Ray, I believe is his last name.
Ray,
Right?
the worst thing that he did, was he helped the New Jersey taxpayers. He took $8 million or something of the taxpayers' money to defend the governor, Christie, over this Bridgegate thing. He had every right in the world to bill $8 million. Mazel tov to him. I think it was in a year or two. This guy made $8 million representing Republican Chris Christie, and then Republican Donald Trump picked him to be the head of the FBI. I mean, everything, I shouldn't say everything, a lot of what Trump says is absolutely factually. You could have his mouth is moving. You could do a crawl at the bottom, fact checking him. Wrong. You could give him the dings, but not dings for good words, dings for wrong, false. We got to get into Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, well, I wanted, I want to get to, let's do the Epstein thing, and then I want to get to the ICE stuff that you mentioned, because there's a major judicial ruling on that. Basically saying that DHS making these stops and arrests and these immigration raids has been doing it illegally, and that has to change. So let's put back burner that. But I do really want to make.
I want to say one thing real quick, Mark, real quick.
Yes, sir.
Remember when the Beatles and the Stones came here, they called it the British invasion. Well, we've had an American invasion now of the UK, led by your guests. So David K. Johnston and I were on Times of London yesterday within an hour of each other.
Oh, there you go. I love it. It's a distinguished pairing.
That's the interest in Epstein. That's the intense interest in Epstein.
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah.
Across the pond.
So give me a moment then on Epstein, your thoughts, and you can give me both the legal and political. I'm sure you did both on British media yesterday.
Well, one thing I wanted to stress to them was that the president is totally disingenuous. His followers that he calls now stupid and weaklings may have actually had a rift in Maga. And with all the things that didn't cause, everyone who believes in the rule of law, who's sort of middle of the road, has been, when are these Maga people going to wake up that they're in a cult, wake up that this guy's cutting their Medicaid benefits, waking up to all the ways that he's hurting them with the tariffs, with so many of his policies? When are they going to wake up? And you wouldn't have guessed that this would be the one where they would wake up. But apparently there's a large part of the MAGA base that feels very strongly, that's very invested in this Jeffrey Epstein story as being a sort of, a parable of the little guy's fight against the elites. This is supposedly a very elite guy who ran around with everybody, and they like to think he ran around with Clinton and all these Democrats, but probably the reality is he ran around a lot more with very rich people. A lot of them are probably Republicans. A lot of them probably are donors to Trump. And of course, the defense of all of them is about the same. This is Clinton. This will be Trump's defense, no matter how much he's actually in the files when they're finally released. He'll say, yes, I hung out with him. I went on the plane. Maybe I went to the island. But the defense of everybody is, I didn't know that he was squirrely. I didn't know what he was doing. He wasn't going to tell me about it. If he had three or four times where he enticed these very, very rich people to do something they shouldn't have done, and then he blackmailed them, he wasn't going to tell me about it. Trump's going to say he wasn't going to tell me about it. I went on the plane. I thought this guy was a straight arrow. I mean, maybe we partied together and stuff like that, but I didn't know it was with underage girls. I didn't know what makes this case so awful, child rape. That's the last thing in the world I knew about him, or that he would have told me. Of course, there's a lot of really bad stuff in it for Trump, because he got this sweetheart deal way back when in Florida. He should have been in prison, not the second time, when, according to them, he was suicided. Their story, they always love this expression, he was suicided. And now Bondi, the attorney general, says, no, she has proof. And then when she shows the proof, there's a 1 minute gap. It's like the famous gap in the Nixon things for people.
Turns out the gap is actually 3 minutes, I guess, based on the wire.
And then it turns out to be 3 minutes. People said, it's only 1 minute, 1 minute. How can you kill a person within 1 minute? And then it turns out, no, it really is 3 minutes, which sounds like just about the time that you could get into someone's cell, kill them, and get out during the 3 minute gap. I mean, it's so amateurish, and I guess Wired put together how it was actually done. And it was apparently done in an amateurish way. And why is the Attorney General of the United States and the FBI vouching for this? And then on top of that, Kash Patel and this Bongino guy, this is how they got rich. They got rich with this propaganda, with these conspiracy theories. And of course, what they're going to do is turn on a dime, I think both of them, and just basically disavow that. I don't think Bongino is going to go back to, the media. I think that while he'd make more money doing that, he's got this very powerful job. And
Completely
I think
agree. Completely agree. He runs the FBI essentially.
Yeah,
Patel
I think he's vindictive. I think he wants to nail some people. I think we need to look at every single case that comes out of an FBI investigation and not look at it with this presumption. Well, of course it's regular and they're following the rules, but to try to figure out who did that target piss off. Why does Bongino or Patel or their minions at the FBI? That's not. We don't think of them now as like special agents, distinguished people who went to law school, went to accounting school and stuff like that. We just, this is what's happened to the FBI. They're the minions of two very political, opinionated heads. You know, he was going to Kash Patel. I think he assured people he was going to have a normal FBI agent, one of these guys with 20 years experience who worked his way up through the ranks and knew the whole FBI procedures. And then he didn't pick a guy like that. He picked Bongino, which if people on your audience haven't followed him, I mean, he's a shouter on right-wing radio. He's the conspiracy theorist of all, with a capital C and a capital T, who's been behind this idea that when they get to the bottom of Jeffrey Epstein, all these Democrats' names are going to pop out. And let me say one last thing. You know, this is not these files that, and Bondi's in terrible shapes because she said the files were all on her desk. And now she either has to say, I was lying, the files weren't on my desk. What she said is I was sort of misled. I misspoke. The files were on my desk, something about the files. But she said, and you can play it in an endless loop, the files are on my desk right now. So was she lying? Was she stupidly misled? And she spouted that as though it were fact when it was completely unchecked, not something a lawyer should do and not something the Attorney General of the United States should do. Or have they been destroyed since then? Were they on her desk and now there's nothing to reveal because someone has destroyed them or tampered with them since? And the conspiracy theorists with the 1 minute gap that turned to a 3 minute gap, and with Trump saying, talk about terrible advice. The worst thing he could say for his own self-protection was there's nothing to see here. I don't know why everybody's so fascinated with this. That, of course, just makes people more fascinated with it. I mean, the huckster in him ought to know that when you say, don't be fascinated with this, it's going to make people fascinated. And Mark, one last thing. I don't know if you saw Colbert last night, but he said it's pretty boring. Okay, he says it's pretty boring.
Yeah, that's what Trump is saying. It's pretty boring, actually.
And he gives an example, you know, the great way that he presents it, where he said, let's see, there's sex, there's an island, there's planes going around, there's 2 presidents of the United States.
Yeah, the most powerful people in the world. I was just about to say that. That's what Colbert said. I was going to say, what can possibly be boring about that?
Fascinating than this. Yeah, and so then he does the thing where he yawns. Oh, like he's right.
It's salacious in the extreme. I want to get to the. By the way, I think that Trump's already done a bit of this. He'll try to throw the media off the scent of Epstein, although the drumbeat is so loud. But he'll try to do it he's already trying to do it, but he'll do it in ways that involve the law. That's why I just want to mention it to you. I think he'll assign a special prosecutor not for the Epstein files. He doesn't want a special prosecutor anywhere near that. But I think he wants some kind of ongoing investigation with Adam Schiff, with Comey and Brennan. We've already seen it. He may go back to Hillary Clinton. He can go back to the 2016 election. May go to the 2020 election with Biden and the Biden family. He's going to want to stir up that pot. That will be I think, a legal means that he'll attempt to distract using those sorts of levers of legal power. That's why I mentioned it to you.
Can I address that really quickly? One of the ways you would try to target your enemies is a tax case. The IRS has, never really satisfied the public that there is a absolutely clear way, which is not political, which is not targeted, how they pick people to audit. But Comey doesn't have to worry about that because Comey already had this amazingly intrusive audit and he came through totally clean. So he's already been through that washer already under Trump the first time. And Trump had a very Trumpy head of the IRS you don't hear much about. Remember this one? And they also picked the second in command under Trump. And he also got the audit. And they said it was just purely statistical. And the New York Times said it was 1 chance in 5 million that they both would have been picked for that incredibly intrusive audit. So they got nothing on Comey. The idea that they tracked him, now you can do that legally, Mark. You want to know the law? Yes, they can follow.
They surveilled him, is what David's talking about. The FBI surveilled, followed James Comey, and they
cannot,
as an
like
excuse.
They can not like one of your shows, and they can decide to follow you to the Gelson's Market. But, you know, and because it's a public place. But at some point, it's going to come out like it came out with Comey, and people are going to say, this is awful. What, we're some fascist country now where they don't like Comey? You know, he sent this photograph. It's so ridiculous. I remember I had a client who said, I got 86th from the Mirage Hotel. And I knew very well that 86th from the Mirage Hotel didn't mean they were trying to kill her at the Mirage Hotel. It means that they told her, we don't want your business anymore. 86 just means to remove somebody. It's not at all. And they followed his car based on that. And they made him come in for an interview. He had to call his criminal defense lawyer. The former head of the FBI, Comey, had to call a criminal defense lawyer and arrange a meeting with the Secret Service. It was outrageous. And I want to say one more thing about Adam Schiff, who people know is my old friend from the U.S. Attorney's Office. They got nothing, bupkis, zilch against him. He had a great thing. He said, they used to accuse me of treason. I guess mortgage fraud. I'm moving way up.
Well, because you've mentioned it, just mention what the details are. Essentially, they're saying that his residence was Yeah, go ahead.
There are people who buy houses that they're not going to live in. They buy 10 of them. They get a better mortgage rate by saying they're going to live in it, because people don't abandon houses that they live in. They abandon spec houses. So the mortgage company, the bank, wants to make sure that you're going to really live in the house. Adam Schiff made it totally clear he was going to live in two places. He was going to live in a place in Washington where he was raising his kids and sending them to school. And he was going to live in the place in Burbank because he was the congressman from Burbank. The banks knew everything. So the banks weren't misled. The country's ripped off. First of all, the country's not ripped off. The bank either makes the loan or it doesn't. The bank made the loan to Schiff with total disclosure from Schiff. He had a lawyer work on it. End of story. It's a nothing burger.
But it's, again, part of his ongoing battle against his enemies, his political enemies and his perceived enemies.
The way he's going, he's going to make Schiff president, and he's going to make every one of those people he targets in the U.S. attorney's offices and fires the U.S. attorney for whatever district they used to be an assistant in. That's what he's achieving with this. President Schiff and all those fired people as the U.S. attorneys around the country. Go ahead.
If the Democrats regain power, that will be what would happen, or potentially. I do want to get to this ruling, David, about the about ICE and what's happening with the detention of so many people without probable cause. Now, a judge has weighed in on this, and I wonder if you could just comment on that. Essentially, the federal judge finding the DHS has been making stops and arrests in L.A. in these immigration raids without probable cause. They've ordered the department to stop detaining individuals based on race, spoken language, or occupation. That appears to be the way they've been doing it thus far. Can you speak about how that's going to proceed?
Well, I've told your audience for a long time that thank God we have a separation of powers and we have federal courts with judges with life tenure. And I know it's easy to get depressed and miffed. Worse than that, when you see what the U.S. Supreme Court is doing and with their 6-3 majority. But we have wonderful federal judges around the country. And one of them here, her name is Frimpong. She was nominated by Biden, and approved by the Senate. She got this case and she ruled, and she didn't wait around to do it. She issued an injunction right away, which actually stopped the ICE raids here in L.A. Once she made the ruling. I mean, that's what's been shocking. These judges waiting around for a week, or they don't put the stay in, and they put a stay in effect for a week or 2 weeks, and then you see some appellate court reverse it. And hers may yet get reversed by the Ninth Circuit. But the point is, she had good reason to rule right away, and she had good reason to put in effect a temporary restraining order, and she did, and it stopped ICE. And what she said was it violates the Fourth and Fifth Amendment to pick people up and it discriminates against people, the 14th Amendment, to pick people up because they're brown-skinned or because they're speaking Spanish or they're speaking English with a so-called Hispanic accent. And any of those reasons are a violation of the Constitution. You have to have an articulable suspicion, which can't be based on you having brown skin, and you have to have probable cause. They don't have probable cause, but they don't even have an articulable suspicion if it's just that you have brown skin. That's an improper basis to form an articulable suspicion to stop people or arrest people. And that's what they're based on. And so she said at this hearing, she said, what is your plan? Show me how you select these people if it's not their brown skin and that they're speaking Spanish. And they had no answer. I mean, the government didn't even take the hearing seriously. They didn't even put on a serious defense. And that can be not incompetence. That can be that they had no defense to put on, that is exactly how they're doing it. They say it's the totality of the circumstances. That's what Homan says. The head of ICE, who has no respect for the courts at all, has made that clear. The totality of the circumstances seemed to be he was totally brown and he was speaking Spanish.
So that temporarily shuts this down, or it forces ICE to concoct evidence in some way that might justify, in the way you always say, pulling somebody over. If you follow them for 3 blocks, you can always find a reason to pull them over. I wonder if you feel as though this legal judgment and this injunction or ruling against the way that ICE has been doing things is going to have any kind of effect as to how they will concoct, as I say, a plan or a strategy moving forward. They still want to, they ramp up these deportations in ways that, are incredibly aggressive. And I'm wondering if you can speak to, what will likely happen then.
Well, I think they'll come up with a better defense. I think that they'll probably
today they were in Sacramento. Apparently, I just saw this in the chat, picking up people at Home Depot. I mean, is that it's sort of the
ruling. Remember those, they don't like those nationwide injunctions. So my understanding is it's not a nationwide injunction. It covers the Central District of California, which is why they probably have taken their macabre
game to Sacramento.
The macabre circus up to Sacramento and other places that are outside of the Central District. The Central District includes Santa Barbara County. It would include Ventura, where they had that awful encounter out there, and somebody was so scared of them that he actually died. He fell off.
That's in Camarillo, in Ventura County.
Camarillo. Yeah. So Ventura County, Santa Barbara County, all the way out to the Nevada line. Her order would cover all of that. And my understanding is that they have stopped and backed off, at least until they get another ruling. I mean, there's an injunction right now. You're in contempt of court if you violate my order, and the order is not to stop people on the basis of them being brown skinned. And they don't seem to have any other plan. Now, if they continue to lose that case, we may be kind of this carved out district where they're not doing this anymore and happy just to have that. They have to litigate this case better if it gets challenged. They have to come up with some plan and show the totality and have some statistics that 98% of the people at a car wash are illegal. So it's not because they're brown, and they'll have something that they arrested people who weren't brown. You know what I mean? They'll try to gussy up the record somehow. But I have no confidence in these people at the Department of Justice. I mean, I'm shocked to hear myself say this, because I would have told you, 2 years ago, I would have said, well, my goodness, I mean, you got the Department of Justice involved. You got these assistant U.S. attorneys. They're all doing this not for the money. They're doing this because they believe in the rule of law. But my confidence is getting very shaken, because I've said for a long time, it's not really a government of laws in this country. It was meant to be. But it's more a government of the men and women who choose to do it. And
thank you. I've been saying that ever since we've been on the air. I've been saying it for years. It's not that the systems are flawed. It's that the systems are the people who inhabit the systems. And so if those people are corrupt, you have a corrupt system by definition.
So well said.
Let me just quickly get you on to, and I know our time is short, but I didn't want the shadow docket decision from SCOTUS on the dismantling of the Department of Education. They just dismissed everybody. And the shadow docket, you said before, this is in a summer session. They're not really there. They make a decision. There's no real explanation on it. And they say, hey, yeah, Trump administration and McMahon, who runs the Department of Education, you're okay getting rid of all these Department of Education employees and just dismissing them without cause.
Well, I was a bit surprised, and people have said that they should at least explain their ruling. There was almost no explanation for this ruling. The Supreme Court, 6-3, when they allowed that, when they said on the merits that they thought that judge was wrong in what she ordered as to the entire federal workforce. And I thought, and she thought, and the Ninth Circuit thought that Congress had to be more involved. And the Supreme Court, in that ruling from last term and now this summer ruling, they obviously have in their mind, the 6 of them, that the president can hobble these agencies a lot more than people had thought without having Congress involved. He still hasn't gone back to Congress because there aren't 60 votes to do it in the Senate. And so they seem to have in mind that even what he did at the Department of Education is within how far he can go. Now, Trump himself has acknowledged that he cannot abolish an agency. And it seems awfully close to abolishing an agency if you can dismiss a quarter of the people who work there. I mean, he doesn't have to go to Congress to dismiss 5 or 6 people. If there was some part of it that was started by Biden and had 6 people working for it, Mark, you can see where he could dismiss those 6 people. And when they say, well, it was a little department, you have to go to Congress because it was a little department of 6 people, that's on one side of the equation. But I think a lot of lawyers, including the judge who ruled on it and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, thought that you couldn't go this far as he's gone in dismissing people at an agency. And by ruling the way that they did, I think what they're saying is that just like they ruled with the 16 federal agencies, that it looks like he's going to win on the merits. What they would say to you is that they have not ruled on the merits on the case of the 16 federal agencies, and they haven't ruled on the Department of Education. They've just said that they're not going to put a stay in effect. So while it's being litigated about the Department of Education, like while it's being litigated about the other 16 federal agencies from just a month ago, that Trump's orders can go into effect, which means the people can be dismissed. That's why soon after that ruling about the Department of Education, thousands of pink slips went out. And what I don't get with the Supreme Court is that they don't see the balance of equities being in favor of the workers. The workers you cannot unscramble that egg. You can unscramble the egg the other way. If the government is right, okay, so it took a few more months to get rid of those people. But then when it's actually a final ruling in the case, you can get rid of those people. But the reality is that you can get rid of those people without having the stay in effect, and you can never unscramble the egg. I just hope that a lot of those people, number one, will get good jobs other places. I hope some of them were planning to retire or leave the government anyway. And hopefully all of those programs won't be curtailed so much that the Pell Grants will come out. But I want to say one last thing, because I'm a product, and a lot of your listeners are the product. You know, we need to stand up more for the Department of Education. It's not just a bunch of bureaucrats who sit around there and play tiddlywinks. I was able to go to college and law school through the Department of Education, through grants that came through them. I don't think it even been created yet, but the agencies that got brought into the Department of Education, whatever it was 79 by Carter, those were the agencies that helped pay they got me student loans at 3%. They got me Pell Grants. They got me all that kind of stuff. Our lives, the people who listen to your show, and a whole lot of people, millions and millions of people in this country, we have been helped to get into the middle class, the upper middle class, whatever the hell we're in, by the Department of Education's programs. And my last thing on this is that if you can do this to the Department of Education, you can do this to the Department of Defense. All these Republicans are very short-sighted. You can apparently cut 1/4 of the Department of Defense when the Democrats get back in power, okay? Even without Congress. All you need is a Democratic president, and the Congress can stay Republican. You can cut 1/4 of the Department of Defense. Hear me, 1/4 of the Department of Defense, the new Democratic president can do without going to Congress. Let's see.
Hear me, David Katz. Hear me, David Katz.
Republicans like that when it happens.
I get your point, and of course you're right. I mean, eventually, you know, Democrats may reascend to power if the structure of America governmentally and electorally is left intact. But I would say this about that. I would say it's politically not feasible to cut the Department of Defense. Look at the way all these Democrats always vote for additional funding, even more funding than DOD asks for. I mean, you know this. You were in Washington. I grew up in Washington. No one touches the DOD budget. And so the notion, I mean, I get your point, theoretically. Look, guys, be careful. Live by the sword, die by the sword. But the idea is, I think when it comes to the Department of Defense, not applicable, because I just feel as though it's politically not feasible to cut DOD in any way. Look, even Elon Musk, who was basically slashing everything, he didn't go near DOD.
But the Republicans are in charge. If you don't like the DOD example, how about the ICE example? ICE now has a budget to
most
deport
certainly.
people, which is larger than the military budget of any country besides ours and China. Is that unbelievable? We're spending
I
more
like that. I like that example more. Yes,
we're spending more on ICE than on the budget. Let me just say, there's so much fat in the military. You know, this has been true for decades and decades, and people know it. Why do we have a base in every state, and sometimes we have 2 or 3 bases in these states. These states they're landlocked. There's nobody attacking them. There's nothing happening. In the middle. The states I'm talking about. They're all over the South, in particular.
Well, that's how defense contractors get the appropriations, because they take care of every state and every legislator. Exactly right.
But there's
the
so
game
much
is
waste.
the game is so obvious.
There's so more waste, Mark, in the Department of Defense than there ever was in the Department of Education. There just is. Every economist will tell you that. Everybody's looked at it. I know it's different political dynamic. That's why I'm a lawyer and you're the politically savvy guy.
No. Look at this. More 1500 says, I disagree, Mark. Call their bluff. Don't get me wrong. I love the play. I'm telling you, politically, look at what David Katz just has said. Decade after decade, they don't touch DOD. Why do you think that is? It's not out of some philosophical underpinning. It's because they know that it's a political third rail to vote against defense. I mean, I do believe that they skinnied it slightly in some areas under Obama, I want to say, maybe, or at least they talked about a more efficient military force. They were going to change it from sort of this post-World War II battleship-centric force to a kind of a updated force. That's about the best you can really get away with, because, as I say, politically, it's just not feasible. But we can go round and round on this. Look, you've been great. Again, generous with your time. And you're so lovely to tolerate my pushback on certain things when it comes to the politics of it. But wow, I'm looking forward to watching more of you and David K. Johnston on British television. So thanks. I'll see you next Thursday. And you're the best, David Katz.
I love the colloquy with you. Revel in the question. Revel in the question, Mark. Enjoy it.
All the best, my friend. Yeah. David Katz, everybody. Right on. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Wow, David is the best. I love going around with him. Quickly, I wanted to. What do we have, Albert and Kim? Do I have time to read some comments on the way out?
Yeah, I think you should.
Calvin Wong, who is the shadow producer of the show, Boebert wants Matt Gaetz as special prosecutor for the Epstein files.
No.
I think she literally did say that. I mean, is that comical or what? Matt Gaetz. Wow. Maria Clayton, a $20 super chat. Thanks for all you guys do. Love watching your show from St. Pete, Florida. Come on.
Woo-hoo!
St. Pete, big shout out.
Big shout out.
St. Pete, Florida.
I got to go look for what's going on in St. Petersburg, maybe for tomorrow.
That's right. Friday Fabulous Florida is awaiting you, just a day away. You guys are getting me through this year, says Quill Classic. Barry says, I'm with you on your take on Michael Flynn and Comey. Thank you for that. I always like people who are with me on my take. Thank you, Barry. You guys are getting me through this year, says Quill Classics. Thank you, Quill. And sadly, the year is only about halfway over. So there's a lot of year still to come. Diddy's trial sounded like another distraction from the real issues that really matter. Why give it time, says Chaplain Fred. Yeah. Well, again, it's sort of the same mix of stuff that's associated with the Epstein trial. In a way, sex always gets attention. This was sex, perversion of one sort or another, alleged. The powerful person that Diddy was, wealthy, entertainment, celebrity. That's why. You know that.
He also had a
why.
long list of celebrities tied to him too, including actors and actors, like very prominent people. So
yeah, thank you. I mean, again, when you add celebrity and you have SEX, you get that. Beth Farmer with a $19.99 $20 super chat. Wow. She says, my daughter lives in Spain. The rumor going around there is that ICE is deporting immigrants by flying them over the ocean and throwing them out of the plane.
What?
Really? Let me tell you, I don't put anything past anybody. I mean, I guess that's what movie was that? Scarface, where they did that? Albert, you're like a Scarface guy, maybe. I don't know. But that was
Albert, thank you.
I haven't seen that. Beth Farmer, First of all, I love that your daughter lives in Spain. Will she sponsor my new citizenship there?
I think if you stay there long enough, Mark, they will accept you.
You got it. It takes a couple $1 million though. I think it's really expensive to be. You have to, So I need a whole GoFundMe to really make it happen.
My ties to Spain being Filipino, if I do stay there long enough, they will grant me citizenship.
Wow, that is
I am part of the old.
Extraordinary.
I used to be part of their land. On my
That's
land.
right. Of course, you were as a Filipino.
And this is their new hoax.
Well,
I'm a citizen of
idea is
Luxembourg. Yay!
Yeah. What's that?
I'm a dual citizen of Luxembourg.
That's unreal. Kim really outranks us in every way. Super sticker from Ms. Organic. Shout out, Ms. Organic. Thank you for the $5 super sticker. Really appreciate that. ICE was running a raid at Home Depot in Sacramento this morning, says Randy. Yeah, I mentioned that to David Katz. Michael Feinberg is the agent that came out about seasoned agents being used for security. Oh, that's interesting. Says Rep. We're talking about FBI agents being used for security and being used to essentially help out in these ICE raids. That relates to what we're talking about with David Katz. Refurbishing Alcatraz is absolutely ridiculous, says Dillette. It's in shambles.
Yes.
Well,
it's crumbling.
Let's not be too quick. A little bit of paint and some well-placed wicker could totally change the look of Alcatraz. Am I right, people? You know what I'm saying.
That's like an HGTV and a TLC combined show.
That would be the greatest upgrade improvement show ever. Before
This
and
week,
after.
Trump's new prisons.
Michael D says, Mark, can we call Spielberg and offer Trump a role as Tony Soprano in a reboot of the Sopranos series? I think that's the surest way to get him out of the Oval Office in the coming year. He's found his magic spot, Michael, although I love it. And I don't think he's leaving for anything. He's got it all. The world is coming to him. His demands are being met. His lunacy is being indulged. But he does have a political problem on his hands. And it's related to this Epstein thing, which doesn't seem to go away. But as I mentioned, if you haven't seen it, I talked about what I think is going to happen and what I think Trump will do to try to essentially build a media distraction to get people away from Epstein. So I don't know that it'll be successful, but that's what Alcatraz, no water, no septic. Well, that's right now, but it's going to be, there'll never be anything like it once Trump gets done with it.
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be a whole new place. You know what I mean?
I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, Kelly Malloy, thank you for the $2 super sticker. And now a farewell from the great Shadow.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Kim, I'll see you tomorrow. Albert, I'll see you tomorrow. And all of you, I hope I'll see you tomorrow. We're out of time. Thank you. And bye-bye.